Hello and welcome everybody to another edition of the Penn's Iceberg radio program. As always, I'm your host, Casey Stamp. Along with me today are my partners, Luke Courtwright and Jason Kaczynski. How you doing today, Luke?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. That's great to hear. How you doing, Jason?
Excellent. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Anytime, all smiles here as we're set to bring you in on another great program tonight, the 1st of November. We're going to open up tonight by talking about Sidney Crosby, his continued recovery, and the latest on his possible return date. Then we're going to give you the latest on all of the injury updates and finish up with some game prediction for this next road trip out west, so stay tuned. We've got a great show coming your way right here on the Penn's Iceberg. Welcome back. Pittsburgh Penguins captain Sidney Crosby hasn't played an NHL game since January 5th. Obviously, it's been a long and difficult road trying to recover and come back from such a serious injury as he sustained. No doubt the hardest part of the journey for him has come and gone, and he is almost ready to return to game action. Following Ray Shero's comments and Darren Dreger's speculation, many Pens fans, and indeed many fans from all over the NHL, are excited for the NHL's greatest player to return to action, and the day that they have circled on their calendar, November 11th, in a home game against the Dallas Stars. Luke, do you think November 11th really holds any weight, or do you think it's just another one of those speculations that we've had throughout this entire ordeal?
I think it's definitely mostly speculation here. I know it was my prediction when we discussed it here on the show. People were speculating that he'd come back for a home game. I think in terms of competition, Dallas would be a less physical matchup, more of a skating matchup than most teams we see on a regular basis anyway. It's certainly not the Flyers or the Bruins. It seemed like a good time frame from when he started practicing with contact. I don't think there's anything concrete for a date right now, but we'll see how things go this next week.
I definitely agree. I think there's been a lot of speculation about that date because it makes a lot of sense. It's logical. The Pens have played 14 games here in October, which doesn't leave a lot of practice time, and there's little to no contact on game day skates. Having that many games, Coach Dan Bilesmore has been known to give his players maintenance days as days off. Following the Toronto game, October 29th, the Pens will play just 2 games in 11 days. That leaves a lot of time for quality practices and for Sid to get some contact. So I think that's the reason why there's a lot of speculation. Whether it holds any weight, we'll find out soon.
And they still insist there's no solid timetable, and all we know as of now for sure is that Sid is and has been symptom-free for some time. He continues to practice and take contact on a daily basis, and each day brings him closer to return. Here are Sid's latest comments on his recovery and return.
You want to get close, you want to get out there in game situations, but how do you feel practice is going? How would you evaluate yourself as a player if you were looking at what you're doing in practice?
Pretty good. I think I'm getting more comfortable, and like I said before, the more I can get those game situations in, the better. But feel like each time we've kind of done that stuff, it's gotten easier and easier. So it's a good sign.
Have you had any symptoms creep up lately or in the recent past?
No, it's been good. I mean, same old story. We haven't got a ton of time to practice, but next little while there's going to be some opportunities. So kind of probably be a bit more of a test there to get some days in a row with some contact and some game situation stuff.
So you can rule out 100% playing on this trip?
Yeah.
These 2 games. You come back, there's even more days, so...
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean,
this weekend?
timing's a bit better now with the practice we're going to get in here shortly, but, it's still a big test. It's, it's not, not something I want to get too far ahead of. I just want to make sure that I make the most of that time.
How much contact have you taken Sid in practice?
3 hits, or I mean, not much, not a ton, but like I said, the next few days I'll hopefully get more. But I've gotten practices in, but not consistently. If it was one day, I'd get that in, but that's about it. Not really consistently.
You can't just have someone go out there and just like one-on-one. That's not the game situation. That's not really what benefits you, right? It has to
Sometimes you're fighting for pucks and you're battling corners, and you get hit sometimes when you don't expect it. You're trying to handle the puck or look for someone. All that stuff's much different than kind of being prepared in a one-on-one battle.
So in the process of just trying to get practices back and all that stuff, do you even allow yourself to think this might be a date down the road, or is this just you don't want to?
I mean, I just want to get. I mean, it's not just an automatic thing to go through hitting. It's a big step. So I just want to make sure I get through that well, and that's the most important thing. And however long that takes, and it's not a big deal. I just want to make sure that it goes well and give myself the best chance to kind of to make sure that I handle it.
Your endurance there, you said you're all ready to play based on that alone.
I think it's as good as it's going to get without playing a game. I mean, you can only get to a certain point in practice, but I feel like I'm in good shape, but it's not game shape. I mean, you can't get that until you play. So, but no, I mean, as far as practice-wise, yeah, probably in as good a shape as I'm going to get in.
And we all just got to take a listen from what Sidney Crosby had to say, and he confirmed that he will not take part in nor even make the road trip for the next 2 games out in California against the Sharks and the Los Angeles Kings. But it will give him more valuable practice time. Referring to what he said about his condition, we heard him say you can't get into game shape until you've actually played. Jason, in your opinion, how difficult is it going to be for Sidney Crosby the first couple games that he returns? Do you think he'll struggle to adapt back to the real game conditions, or will it be something that he picks up right away?
We've heard Sid already say that he's in as good of shape as you can possibly be without playing an actual game. But even the high-tempo practices, it's difficult to simulate the conditions and pace of a real game. And, added to that is the fact that he hasn't played a game in 10 months. But we're all familiar with Sid's work ethic. He'll do whatever's necessary to get back into form. During the off-season, players shake off that rust fairly quickly once the season begins. Whether it might be a little bit longer for Sid, I don't know, but I'd expect him to do the same.
Yeah, exactly. He's a competitor. We all know that. There's definitely going to be a speed adjustment jumping in from practice to a game. Sid himself would admit that. But you know that first game where he steps on the ice, he's going to come out like he was shot out of a cannon. I would expect a lot of effort right out of the gate. As we said, though, 10, 11 months he hasn't played. So the effort's going to be there. I'm sure he's going to thrive in one-on-one battles that he always does well with. But I'm kind of afraid to pile on too many expectations right away.
Luke, given that he's seemingly had a minimal amount of contact in practices, and even the contact he's had, let's face it, Penguins players aren't going to hit him as hard as, say, Caps players or Tampa Bay players, players from opposing teams. Is that going to be another issue of adjusting back to the physicality?
Well, I mean, you would like to see him take a little more physicality in practice, but with the circumstances, jumping into games, I don't think they're going to throw him to the wolves exactly right away. They'll probably, in the offensive zone, they'll probably try and keep him as a third man high as much as they can. Try not to take too much abuse down low, but we know this is hockey. You can't go out of your way to really protect someone. I think a good option would be starting him with a Malkin or Sullivan, someone who can carry the puck through the neutral zone, gain the blue line. That way he's not going to take that punishment trying to jump into the offensive zone. It'll limit some of those shots he's going to take, and while it's tough to break up the first unit, Sullivan, Neil, Malkin, I think it would pay off to ease him into the lineup.
There will be a collective sigh of relief from Penguin Nation once Sid takes that first good bump during a game and shakes it off. I expect him to be naturally cautious, but not to the extent that it should affect his game. He's a hockey player. He's familiar with the physicality. It's just a matter of getting used to it again. One of the things that made the concussion hits perplexing is that we're not used to seeing Sid put himself into a vulnerable position. He's a pretty elusive player on the ice, difficult to hit and knock off the puck. I think it would take a few good bumps for him to feel normal again. And once he's in the flow of the game, assuming he's symptom-free, he should feel like his old self again.
Sidney Crosby left amid his all-time greatest season. Looked like he was a lock not only to capture all of the trophies, but to break some records along the way as well. Now, we've heard rumors about Sid being as fast as anyone's ever seen him. We've heard teammates testify about how hard it is to even make contact with him in practice because they can't even keep up. Jason, do you think that he can come back and compete at the same level that we've become accustomed to when you're talking about Sidney Crosby, or perhaps even raise the bar further?
I think so. It may just be a matter of time. Sid reminds you a lot of Vario in the sense that once you think you've seen it all, he shows you something that you haven't seen before. No one player is bigger than the game, but one of the sad aspects for hockey fans is that we've been robbed of a prime year of one of the game's greats. With Sid, expect the unexpected. It's not unreasonable to expect him to come back and pick up where he left off, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit if he did. But at some point, I think he gets back to the point where he's capable of giving us a season for the ages, whether that's this year or next year, who knows. But I expect him to be back in the form sometime soon.
It's a mental game, hockey. And this is a very mental injury, obviously, concussion. And Crosby's one of, if not the smartest player in the game. He knows the hurdles he's going to have to jump over, and he'll know how to do it. But then again, this is hockey. You can't try to avoid getting hit because that's when you're going to open yourself up. I don't think he'll have any problems shaking things off just because of the type of character that he has. We saw that pace that he was setting last year, and I don't believe he's going to be able to jump at that right away this year just because he didn't have that normal off-season routine. We know what a workhorse he is in the off-season, just picking one thing and really focusing on it. He's going to feel like he has something to prove, and we know how he can play with that mindset.
Well, I know that with all of the injuries that occurred to key players in the Pens lineup over the last year, Dan Bylsma must be thrilled to get back that type of offensive firepower. Now, seeing how the Malkin, Sullivan, Neal line is done and how productive they've been able to be, do you think it would hurt the team to split up Sidney's return? Who should they pair with Sid, Luke? We'll start with you. Give us your thoughts.
Well, personally, I tend to want to leave Neal with Malkin for now. But I'd like to see Sullivan and Crosby start out together, like I touched on earlier. I think early on it would be nice to have someone carry the puck up the ice for Sid, just so he doesn't have to, so he can limit the shots he's going to take. Sullivan's been really outstanding gaining the blue line and moving without the puck in the offensive zone, so I think that would be a huge benefit. And Sullivan, he's had a lot of trouble putting the puck in the net, so I don't think it would hurt to change things up for him. Obviously, Neal and Malkin have been putting up the points, but Sullivan, while he's played well, in my opinion, I think his stats could be a little higher. Maybe this could just cure his snake bite, if you will. James Neal down the road, I'd like to see him play with Sid, but at this point, you don't want to reorganize the entire lineup card. So with Sid, maybe start him out with Sullivan and Kunitz. We all know he has great chemistry with Chris Kunitz.
Definitely. He has some familiar linemates to come back to in Chris Kunitz and possibly Pascal Dupuis. That can only help him get back into the rhythm of things. But I'm sure Coach Bylsma at some point will let him play with the new toys in the sandbox and pair him with James Neal and Steve Sullivan. And he'll definitely see them on the power play as well. Plus, if something's not clicking in the game, Coach Bylsma isn't shy about splitting up the lines in order to spark the offense. So it should be a matter of when, not if, we're going to see the Crosby, Neal, Sullivan line together. Also with Evgeny Malkin having missed a number of games already with soreness in his repaired knee, it wouldn't be a bad idea to see what kind of chemistry that line might have should you be forced to pair them in a game.
And Luke made a very good point, I think, about Sullivan's play away from the puck. He certainly played perhaps his best defensive game in Toronto the other night despite the loss. Really played a fantastic game as far as his movements away from the puck. And perhaps being on a line with Sid could cure his snake bite. And as Jason touched on, very familiar with Chris Kunitz and Pascal Dupuis. Obviously amid his best season last year with Pascal Dupuis on his wing. And no matter who they decide to pair him with, we're all excited for Sid's return to the NHL, and I'm sure whether it's a home or an away game, the ovation will be outstanding as so many people have respect for a guy like Sidney Crosby. All right, folks, we're going to take a short break, and when we return, we'll have all of the latest injury updates for you, as well as some game predictions. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Casey Stamp alongside Luke Courtwright and Jason Kaczynski. We do know that today, Ben Lovejoy, who is now replacing Zbynek McCulloch in the lineup, left practice today following a boarding drill with Craig Adams. Hopefully he's all right. We could ill afford to lose yet another defenseman. Tyler Kennedy, still not cleared to practice, still out with concussion symptoms, took a few shots before leaving the ice. Once again, with those concussion symptoms. McCulloch, as we mentioned earlier, still out with his broken finger, expected to be out a minimum of at least 3 more weeks. Brian Straight still out with his hyperextended elbow. Jordan Stahl with his lower body injury, expected to be okay for the upcoming road trip, although he did not practice Monday. All of these key injuries to players in the Pens, still finding ways to win, stay atop not only the division but the conference as well, and especially seeing how Washington's game with Anaheim is going tonight. Jason, how are they pulling it off?
It's very cliche, but the players have bought into Dan Biles and the system. They saw the results firsthand last season, that despite the loss of their 2 best players, they were still able to contend in the conference. They don't like to spend a lot of time in their own zone. They get the puck up quick. It's really like a north-south transition. They don't go a lot east to west and make the other team work in their defensive end. They can play a lot of different styles. They can beat you 5-4 in a shootout or grind out a 2-1 win. The other side of that is they're also deep and talented. We're really finding out how deep this Penguin team is. We talked last week about Jordan Stahl and what kind of a player he is. He stepped it up. Neil's playing with a lot of confidence right now. Marc-Andre Fleury has been great in net, and the penalty kill has really picked up right where it left off last season.
Yeah, it's pretty basic. It's fundamentals. These guys, they know their strengths and weaknesses for sure. They're quick. They win faceoffs. They're truly excelling on special teams. This is the best power play we've seen in quite a number of years. The skill might not have been there, but this is a smart hockey team. They know what they're doing.
Absolutely. And going back to what Jason was saying just a few minutes ago about how, we've really learned how much depth we have. Certainly you never want injuries to happen, and there's nothing positive about player not being able to play or take the ice, but, you can learn things from it. And obviously one of the benefits that we've had from it is really learning organizationally, both defense and offense, how much depth we have in terms of the players that we've drafted and acquired. And certainly the Penguins, one of, if not the deepest organization in the NHL. Every one of the minor leaguers is NHL ready. And certainly that's a great thing to have when you have these types of injuries. And the Penguins certainly have a fighting spirit. They continue to win despite players being out of the lineup, and hopefully soon they'll be rewarded with Sidney Crosby's return. With that, let's get into some game predictions for the upcoming week. Thursday night, the Penguins will be at the HP Pavilion in San Jose, California to take on the San Jose Sharks, coming off a tough loss yesterday to the New York Rangers. Still a very tough opponent, now reunited with the Stanley Cup winning goaltender from just 2 years ago, Antti Niemi. Luke, what are your expectations for this game?
Well, the Sharks are one of the few teams that can really skate with the Pens. They've got big guys up front. They're really smooth on the back end. They match up really well. I could see this one going either way, but I think with a well-rested Marc-Andre Fleury, the Pens can pull this one out 3-2.
The Shark Tank is really a tough place to play, one of the toughest in the league, I think. The Sharks, as you said, Casey, are coming off a really tough loss to the Rangers, so they're going to be anxious to get back at it. Joe Thornton is one of the better face-off men in the league, so my hope is that the Pens can continue to match their success on the face-off dot so far this season and win the little battles to grind out another win.
And certainly the Sharks will be a tough test for the Pens. HP Pavilion, as you touched on just a moment ago, Jason, a very loud place. Fans are really into it. On Saturday night, it'll be the Staples Center in Los Angeles for the Pens matchup against the LA Kings. So many offensive tools for LA. How do the Pens keep all of that talent in check, Jason?
Boy, there's definitely a lot of skill on the ice when these two teams play. So it has the makings of a potential shootout. For me, this game will come down to the team that wins the special teams battles. That's the team that should have the edge in this one. I'll go with 4-3 Pens win.
You know, I'm honestly not sold on the Kings this year. There's some name value, but the depth kind of worries me, and I'm not really sure that I can take them too seriously. And I have a lot of respect for Dean Lombardi, and they draft extremely well. But there's a pretty steep drop-off, and a lot of the quote-unquote role players that they have on their bottom two lines, they tend to plug in some younger guys there. So if I were a Kings fan, I'd be a little worried this year. And I won't even start on Dustin Penner, the atrocity that he's put up this year. So I'm just going to go 4-1 Pens. I'm pretty confident in this one.
And one of the things that the LA Kings have in common with the Pens is certainly they try to make their depth up the middle. When you're talking about Anze Kopitar, Mike Richards, and Jarrett Stoll, they certainly have that three-center system, same type of system in place. And if it goes to a shootout like it did last time, Matt Niskanen obviously scoring the winner in Kansas City. Hopefully the Pens can pull off and win again. And by the way, folks, we will have for the first time a live report at the game for you all to enjoy next week. And that will be for the game at LA. So definitely tune in next week to hear it. All right, folks. Well, that's all the time we have for you this week. We thank you all so much, as always, for tuning in. Luke, once again, a pleasure. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you same place, same time next week.
Same time, same place, same YouTube channel.
Absolutely. Thanks for being with us. And Jason, thanks for joining us here this evening. We look forward to speaking with you again next Tuesday night.
Always a pleasure to be talking Pens with you, Casey.
Absolutely. And on behalf of everyone here at the Pens Iceberg, thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, I'm your host, Casey Stamp, saying good night from the Pens Iceberg.